The commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar Brovdi, has just reported on the results of a large-scale operation that took place from January 2nd to January 7th. During these 6 days, Russian regions, the temporarily occupied Donetsk and Crimea, were burning. By the way, friends, the peninsula is now literally being turned into a second Chornobaivka. What happened? How did it happen? What was burning? When was it burning? How much was burning? Where exactly, friends? Then how does this affect the course? Waging war. So let's talk about this in this episode. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. We have some crazy numbers, really cool numbers from Magyar. So subscribe, friends, and to not waste your time, I'll get started. And I'll start with these shots. Please take a look for a second at how beautifully it's burning. So the thing is, these shots are accompanied by something. Magyar's words in his unique, manner, where he explained everything clearly and simply. I quote, "An ochko, that's what it is. SBS birds have pecked at 21 targets deep within enemy and occupied territories," says Magyar. Let's translate this from Magyar speak into plain, simple language, friends, and break down the geography and significance of these strikes. This is super important. First and foremost, this was a systematic operation carried out over 6 consecutive nights. The goal was not just, as you might think, to hit something randomly, but to consistently strike at the supply chains that support the Russian military machine. Now, specifically where the strikes hit, how, and so on. So the first strike was essentially at the heart of the Russian defense industry. On January 4th, the action starts in the city of Yelets. Or is it Yelets? That's in the Lipetsk region. And there is the Energia defense plant. Why is it important? It's the largest plant in Russia for the production of chemical power sources. Simply put, it makes batteries and accumulators, but not for toys, for Iskander missile systems, for guided sea-launched missiles, and for modules. Friends, these modules turn ordinary, so to speak, dumb aerial bombs into guided ones. By striking this enterprise, we hit the Russians' ability to produce precision weapons. This is a blow to their technological potential. Then there was a whole series of strikes on oil refineries, and oil hubs. So the Novokuybishevsk refinery, that's in the Samara region. There was joint work there with the SBS, the Kairos Battalion, and the Special Operations Forces. And then we struck the Admitivsky oil hub. This is in Tatarstan, where millions of tons of oil are processed annually. And then the Afipsky refinery in the Krasnodar region. I don't know, this Afipsky one, it already seems like every night I wake up and it's Afipsky again. And then the Ryazan refinery was hit. The Yaroslavl refinery was struck. Why is all this important? Friends, you don't need to be an expert to understand that oil is the lifeblood of Russia's economy and army. And every refinery set on fire is not just millions of dollars in losses, it's also a reduction in fuel supplies for tanks, APCs, aircraft, and a decrease in export revenues. This is economic exhaustion. To produce shells and missiles, you need not only oil, as you know, but also chemicals. That's why our birds, our drones, reached the Kirovo-Chepetsk chemical plant, a producer of nitric acid for explosives. Let me remind you, that's all. From January 2nd to 6th, that's how much. Next, the Dorogobosh chemical plant was hit. It produces raw materials for TNT, RDX, and HMX. This is a significant and impactful strike, my dear friends, directly targeting the critical and vital ammunition production chain. A substantial reduction in essential raw materials, as you can undoubtedly understand and appreciate, inevitably means a considerably fewer number of crucial shells reaching the brave soldiers at the very front lines of the conflict, severely hindering their operational capabilities and defensive efforts. In Direction A, friends, there is also regular work on airfields and temporarily occupied territories. Magyar emphasizes that at night, strikes are carried out on logistics hubs, ammunition depots, and fuel storage. Command posts in Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, Luhansk regions, and in temporarily occupied Crimea. In general, lately things have been heating up because, let's say, since the middle of summer, well, something arrives there every other night and burns. That is, at first we thoroughly knocked out their eyes, all sorts of radars, electronic warfare systems, air defense, missile defense, and so on. And then we started systematically striking military targets that pose a threat to us, and they can't protect them because of the previous work we've already done. So every day, routinely but vitally, important work to destroy the enemy's potential near our positions. And a bonus strike, take a look at these shots that were released. This is a strike on air defense, friends. Take a look at them. On January 5th, operators of the 412th SBS Nemesis Brigade in Donetsk region destroyed not just equipment, but a key component of the S-300V air defense system, the 9 S-32 guidance radar station, friends. Take a look at it. The thing about this station is that it could simultaneously track 6 targets. 6 targets. And by destroying it, the operators not only neutralized it, that's an expensive system, but they also punched a hole in the enemy's air defense, making things easier for other forces. So the outcome of the operation is as follows. 21 targets hit deep behind enemy lines in 6 days. And these aren't random strikes. This is a coordinated campaign to paralyze the enemy's logistics, fuel, chemical, and defense chains. Now let's step away from this specific operation for a moment, or from specific operations, and take a look at the overall picture. In the previous episode, I already talked about how, the day before, the Security Service of Ukraine published statistics on their work over the past 7 months. The numbers are simply staggering. Let me remind you, look, 832,000 combat sorties, 832,000 combat sorties, friends. Just imagine that armada in the sky. Next, over 168,000 targets hit, from trenches with infantry to depots in the rear. The estimated value of destroyed property is $20 billion US dollars. Personnel, 50,238 occupiers. That's an entire army. As for equipment, 532 tanks, 7,697 vehicles, 5,548 pieces of motorized equipment, artillery. There are about 2,500 cannons and howitzers there. And this is only what has been clearly recorded and verified in the situational awareness system. Delta, this, friends, is an electronic system where every strike has evidence. Coordinates, photos, videos, intelligence data. That is, these are real, confirmed losses without exaggeration. And there's a separate line for targets deep in the rear of the Russian Federation. Do you know how many? 350. According to estimates, these alone inflict about $3 billion in damage to the aggressor's economy every month. This is an additional financial hole in the criminal regime's budget. And all of this is actually great, but what do these huge numbers mean in practice? Let's use some logic. Today, drones have essentially become the dominant force on the front line. And here's a simple comparison. According to open sources, the monthly losses of the Russian army from Ukrainian drones alone, this includes all drones, not just those from the Unmanned Systems Forces. In December, in just 1 month, these losses amounted to 33,000 personnel. Just think about that for a second. Imagine the number of dead occupiers. And now a question. How many people is Russia able to mobilize and recruit each month, including from prisons? Well, about the same, 30 to 35,000. The connection is clear, right? So our drone operators are now working to break even. In fact, they are destroying almost the entire monthly influx of manpower, or at least temporary manpower. The resource that the enemy throws into the meat grinder. The resource that Russia is desperately trying to replenish, our operators simply wipe off the battlefield. And these are just the confirmed losses, friends. Madhya previously spoke about the goal of raising this figure of destroyed manpower to 60,000 per month. We will move from working at zero to systematically, and even more systematically, reducing the human resources of the Russian Federation. This will mean that their army will not just be stuck in place, but will actually start shrinking, friends. It will shrink. And this is the path to operational failure. Yes, Russia has also created, as you know, its own drone forces. They will continue to develop them, but there is a key difference. Their tactic is an assault with mass infantry. Our defense is about attrition and precise strikes. That's why for us, every additional drone, every new operator, directly reduces the enemy infantry's chances of advancing. And in this sense, we have the advantage, and we are preparing for future battles and large-scale recruitment. The SBS, which started in the fall, aims to recruit 15,000 new operators. And this is systematic work for the future Chornobaivka. But there are also new challenges, because the next logical task is to work more actively against enemy drone operators. This will be a kind of, I don't know, counter-drone warfare where the winner will be the one with better technology, more trained personnel, and more effective tactics. By the way, just the day before yesterday, the commander-in-chief, Syrskyi, has already set the task of forming special units that will destroy enemy high-tech drone units, command posts, and the crews of the occupiers' UAVs. So what do we have in the end, friends? First, SBS is no longer just an auxiliary unit, as some might think. It is a strategic branch of the military. It is capable of carrying out extremely complex, multi-day operations deep behind enemy lines, paralyzing their industrial and logistical systems. Second, it's the effectiveness of drones, which has reached such a level that they simply neutralize the enemy's main weapon, its human resources. We are already operating at zero, and the goal is to create an absolutely irreversible deficit for Russia. Third, every destroyed energy facility, oil refinery, or chemical plant is not just an explosion. It means dozens of missiles that won't be produced, hundreds of shells that won't be assembled, and thousands of liters, friends, of fuel that the enemy's equipment won't receive. Right? This is a war of attrition of resources. Fourth, it's the mass recruitment and training of new operators. This is an investment in our future. The more of these specialists we have, the denser our drone, so to speak, coverage of the front will be, and the fewer chances the enemy infantry will have. That's how things stand with us. Please send your likes to the guys from the Unmanned Systems Forces and to Madhyar personally. Thank you for watching this episode to the end. Take care of yourselves and see you next time.